My name is Lisa Lambert, and I'm with Quantum Industry Canada. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. We're in the government track. I am not from government, so we'll just out myself now as an imposter. Quantum Industry Canada, just a little bit of background on my organization. We're a consortium of the Canadian quantum innovators and allied industries right across the country. We have 45 member companies at this moment, growing rather quickly as well. And our member organizations represent everything from small dynamic startups to large global companies across every vertical in quantum technology. Our real mission at the end of the day is to translate Canadian quantum innovation, quantum strengths into prosperity, long-term success. Some of our member companies you can see over here, you'll recognize, I'm sure, a number of these companies. Some of them are here. I really encourage you to go and have a chat with them. You'll notice some of these are Canadian-made companies, but we also have a number of companies from other countries as well who have a strong foothold and presence in Canada, and we're also seeing that increase. I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. I'll take us on a journey a little bit back in time, though, in getting started. I think the 3 milestones over to the right will be of most interest for this conference. But Canada has a long tradition in being a trailblazer in quantum. It's interesting to talk going back to 1984 with quantum. It was an exciting time back then as well, but looking at more recently, we are home to interesting place with D-Wave being the first commercial quantum computing company with their annealing computer, and 1Qubit as well being the first quantum software company, and this is going back now over a decade ago. So there's some other milestones in there, but just a few to take note of, and I'll speak to some of the locations that I think are really key in some of this story. For Canada, and kind of some of the key ingredients for Canada being a quantum pioneer, I don't think it's any of these on their own, but it's really been the combination of these together. So we've seen some really strong private and public investment catalyzing one another and leveraging one another in this. There's been some really early research leaderships. I've showed some of that going back to the previous slide with what's been done with both the quantum computing space, but all their other adjacent technologies as well. A real global talent hub. I heard the statistic that the Institute for Quantum Computing in Waterloo, which was an early pioneer in this space, that about 1/3 of the quantum workforce globally has had a touch point with IQC, which is pretty remarkable. I think that'll change as we go forward and we see other programs stand up, but there was a testament to that early start in quantum with us being a talent hub. And the other thing is our public awareness and education. I don't know many other places in the world that have had a quantum symphony as part of their public outreach programs as well. We had with Canada, we had our 150th anniversary a few years ago, and part of that was a quantum pop-up exhibit that traveled right across the country, but also around the world, and that pop-up is now continuing on to some other countries. So there's been a real effort in that awareness and education space, more to do, but it's been a good start. And with that as well, Canada just has had this really lovely complement of adjacent strengths, competencies, and expertise that are so key for quantum, and quantum has come around now to be kind of the flagship of these other sectors all coming together as we look forward to what's ahead. Right now, the scene in Canada is around these 4 major quantum hubs for the most part. Really interesting things happening in each of these areas. So over in the Quantum Coast, this is home to D-Wave and 1Qubit, as well as a number of other really interesting companies. The Quantum Matter Institute, also at UBC, Simon Fraser University out there also has really strong research in the quantum space and bridging that over to commercialization as well. Quantum City, I think Megan Lee, she may be in this room, but she's certainly here. She is worth having a chat with. There's some very exciting things happening around Quantum City right now with a real focus on market pull and connection with adopters. I'll speak more to that in a second. Quantum Valley, I call it Quantum Valley Plus in Ontario, so that's the Waterloo region ecosystem where there's really early investment by the inventor and co-founder of BlackBerry, Mike Lazaridis, that kicked off the Perimeter Institute, which is one of the biggest collaboration hubs around quantum worldwide, and the Institute for Quantum Computing, which is one of the largest multi-disciplinary quantum information centers in the world as well. And then Ottawa is quite strong with communication and post-quantum cryptography. And some very exciting things happening right now in the quantum innovation zone in Quebec, both with Canadian companies and also recently Pascal had partnered with the Investissement Québec and just announced recently a $90 million investment in manufacturing, commercialization, and research. So a lot of exciting things happening. And I think the other richness in Canada is being such a big geography, we have a lot of different industries in Canada. So we have this very rich pool of quantum adopters or potential quantum adopters that span right across the country. And with these 4 regions, they're able to kind of tune their focus to the market pull side of things. So for example, Quantum City just recently launched a really interesting energy challenge in Alberta, where energy is a big part of their economy over there. So you're able to dial it in with what they're working on in that space. With that in Canada as well, Canada's kind of a sweet spot size population-wise. We're 40 million people, so it's kind of a nice size to be coordinating at the national level as well. So our national quantum strategy was announced back in January 2023, so we're coming up on a year now. More details on that, you can take a look, but you can see similar alignment with the missions with Quantum Industry Canada as well, with where our focus is, and we're looking, particularly my organization, around the talent and the commercialization side, and tuning over the applied research to help drive that effort forward. But if you take a look at this national quantum strategy, what I find really interesting is some of the common themes that emerge are its international nature and this real realization that Canada cannot do this alone, no country can do this alone, and that we need to be collaborating to move this forward. And also collaboration going hand in hand with that international piece. Beyond that investment, though, there's been quite a bit more investment in Canada, and this isn't all-inclusive either, but just to give you a little bit of a sense around what's happening with some of these hubs. So significant investment in Quantum Valley to date. Quebec announcements were just recently shared there with some investments, and that'll continue to grow. Same thing with Quantum City and also with the Quantum Coast over in BC. So again, these efforts are all being amplified. What that looks like globally, this is data from Curaca looking at public investment. So Canada around 1.1 billion comparatively, but it's interesting if you put that into context. Again, our population is only 40 million people, so about 0.5% of global population home in Canada. So just looking at these investments, which I'll tell you are undershot, we're about 27.5 per capita, which is higher than the US and Europe. And I actually think if you were to add up all the investments going into it, it would be closer on track to what we're seeing in the UK right now. So interesting on that space where we're looking at the intensity of what's happening on this side. And where we're at today is real focus on translating quantum science into solutions. And this is not just with Canadian companies, we're really looking at collaborating globally with what this looks like. So with Canadian companies, there's a real understanding that you need to be global right from the outset. We're a small economy, and we need to be partnering, not just for the adoption of these technologies and not just looking to export our work, but also with regards to supply chain and where we can be partnering together, bringing companies into Canada and setting up a real footprint in Canada as well. We're a very welcoming and collaborative environment. On average right now, Canada is taking about 0.5% of its population per year with immigration. So around anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million people per year we're welcoming to the country. So it's a great place to come and be attracting talent and helping to set up shop as well. And there's a real interest in fostering deeper international collaborations as well. Things are changing quickly in Canada, and what I'm really excited about, and I think we'll be seeing more chatter in Canada, and I hope more action with this around, is to shift the focus not just on the developers, but really on adoption. And we're helping with that. I think Quantum City is doing a really good job of leading that as well, but there's other hubs that are really working on that. We're also working to help support on the adoption side as well, and really looking to just strengthen commercialization overall. As we're seeing things move from invention over to innovation, we know if we want to see the diffusion of those innovations, the adoption of that innovation, we really do need to work on the commercialization pillar of Canada's national quantum strategy. We're really excited to help see that evolve and guide that as it moves forward. A little bit of a sense of where we are today, speaking of commercialization. So Canada is the home to the second highest number of quantum SMEs globally, which is pretty incredible considering our size. This data, I can tell you, is already outdated. It doesn't include, for example, the recent investment from Microsoft into Photonic of 100 million, plus their workforce that's going along with that, some other investments as well. But just want to turn your attention to the bottom right-hand corner as well. We've got over 30 international companies operating in Canada, and we're seeing more and more interest in coming to Canada as well. Pascal is a great example. They're setting up their fabrication in Canada, looking to advance research to help complement that. And we've got others as well. Multiverse out of Spain is another company that has a really great footprint in Canada. They really love our ecosystem, actually a lot of it for the adoption potential and entrance into the US market. We also have a really great broader ecosystem in Canada. And I just want to highlight a couple of these support players because they play really interesting roles. So BDC, for example, from the top left, they're one of the few investment agencies globally that knows how to value quantum technology. So they become a really great lead investor in helping to benchmark some of this space as well. Quantessa just really very recently, last week, went public as well with an innovation or an investment fund dedicated to quantum technologies, which is quite interesting as well. Creative Destruction Lab is an accelerator, incubator. About 1/2 of quantum SMEs globally have had a touch point with the Creative Destruction Lab, and they're growing their footprint as well. We're looking again with the Pascal example. They partnered with Investissement Quebec from a financing perspective to have an investment in Canada, grow their footprint there, also giving them good access to the US market as well. And Numana recently announced a test bed in collaboration with Bell, which is a telco company in Canada, government of Quebec, and some other players. Some really exciting things that are helping become reality right now because of this enablement infrastructure that exists here in Canada, but it's also supporting a global ecosystem. Part of that is facilitated with Canada's trade agreements. Canada is quite an interesting player globally for collaboration and has a number of really great trade agreements to help facilitate this. CETA is a really interesting one with Europe. I don't know if there'll ever be another trade agreement, collaboration agreement quite like this one, but lends itself quite well for what's happening in the quantum sector right now. There's also USMCA, which is the ratified version of NAFTA with here into the US. And just taking those two agreements into account, it kind of positions Canada as a really nice hinge country in between different marketplaces. So we're seeing US companies with an interest in Canada setting up shop there. It gives them easier access into Europe and vice versa, with European companies wanting to set up shop in Canada and again giving them a hinge into the US. And the same thing with with Asian countries as well, with an interest into Canada for broader access into markets. So really interesting positioning, even though we're a small nation. Another thing on this one is we're working on developing stronger bilateral agreements with different countries of interest as well to support further collaboration and development in quantum. I've got a map for this for research. I don't for industry partnerships yet, but it's something that we are developing. But if you take a look at where Canada is collaborating internationally right now, strong ties over in Europe, same thing in the US, over in Asian countries as well. I think you'll see something similar with this for industry partnerships as well. And just a few things on this I can say from the industry perspective. There's a real strong commitment right now to dynamic progress in this space and really building on the early momentum for Canada. Real desire to expand global partnerships and look at what we can be doing together to move this forward. Again, real warm invitation to come to Canada, to come set up a footprint there and grow your company in Canada. You've got a really great ecosystem of collaborators and a great support structure as well. And also more of a focus in Canada, I think it's a very Canadian thing to do, is to look at beyond the technology. What are some of the human factors? What are some of the global factors? What are some of the social factors that are going to be needed for the diffusion of this innovation and the broader adoption? If you have any questions, I am happy to chat. You can contact me there. And I would also encourage you to talk to some of the other Canadian representatives that are here at Q2B. Thank you.